Welcome back to the CUSA Roundtable and a happy week one of the college football season. If you're new here, I am Jake Bolden, host of the Blue Raider Podcast, one of the 9 schools represented in the CUSA Podcast Roundtable. And you'll notice along with me is some of those other representatives from the other CUSA schools. Secondly, if you're new, don't forget to follow us on our main podcast page at CUSA Roundtable. There we will retweet all of our podcast members' information as well as all of our episodes, any other tidbits. Like I know that I post shorts, Ben over at March to the Pod posts his shorts. So all the info as well as I know Jake Gibson stuff over at Pause That Podcast articles. So all the CUSA stuff you could possibly stomach is on our site. So if you're not already following at CUSA Roundtable, you need to do so now that we're heading into football season. So let's get into what we're talking about today as we preview this weekend's matchups. I know we're going to talk about our best, worst case scenarios for our upcoming weekend for the teams that are represented here. And then we'll debut our new Pick'em series where all of our members went through and picked the first 2 weeks matchups in just CUSA. And we will compare our scores every 2 weeks bi-weekly as we get to the end of the season. And we'll see who comes out on top. And then lastly, we got a little G5 fantasy talk I'm sure we'll go over as we did our fantasy draft this last week. We'll leave Steven out of it because he's not a fantasy guy. But anyways, let's roll into it. I want to go ahead and let's start talking about our first weekend, guys. It's finally here. I know we're really excited about it, and I will turn it over to Steven first because he probably has one of the toughest week one matchups of any of us here. So, Steven, tell me a little bit about what you think your best and worst case scenarios could possibly be for this first weekend.
Yeah, we open up at Alabama. So game one of the Kalen DeBoer era. Nick Saban is retired and off to the pasture. Still around the team a lot and program a lot from what I see. They are naming the field after him week 2 against USF, not against us. I thought it would have been cool, but yeah, it's still Alabama. I mean, we've played them 3 times historically, lastly in 2016. Fun environment. I can't wait to make the trip, but realistically, that's going to be a tough matchup. And the way I look at it, even with the new coaching staff, a lot of turnover on the roster and in that coaching staff, there's a lot of unknowns there in Alabama, but he still recruited pretty well. He kept a lot of talent there. He brought in a lot of good talent. And quite frankly, he's going to want to put on a show, in my opinion, in week 1, to the fan base. Show you what I did here at Washington. He had this high scoring offense with Michael Penix last year. Obviously went to the championship game. So it's going to be a tough game. What I hope it doesn't turn into is what happened when we played at Ohio State last year. We took a lot of risk on the wrong side of the field, going for it on 4th down, etc. And, just kind of really shot ourselves in the foot, put ourselves behind the 8 ball early and often in that game, and just ended up getting blown out and embarrassed. I would like us to come in officially debuting a new quarterback, TJ Finley, named the starter today. So I would just like us to come in and play good sound ball, execute, and not get blown out. If we can keep the game close going into halftime and see what happens, maybe get a couple lucky breaks with turnovers, etc. Anybody can lose a game on any given day. Obviously, that's going to be a tough task, and I don't expect to win. Worst case scenario, we get blown out and we collect $1.9 million and come back to Bowling Green, Kentucky, and get ready for EKU. Best case scenario, we keep it close, through halftime, and then, once that depth and skill really starts to show its head in the second half, they pull away and cruise to a nice victory. So, dreams and hopes of an upset are always in the back of your head, but realistically, that's going to be a daunting task. And, I like to say you're going to have to throw a perfect game basically to even be in consideration. And we could play our best game of the season and still lose by 2 touchdowns. So should be a fun environment, and I'm looking forward to it, but it's going to be a tough road to hoe to even stay in the game, quite frankly.
You're a lot like MTSU is with their second week matchup with Ole Miss. I think you're begging to get out of there healthy and at least be respectable. All right, we'll turn it over to Ben Reynolds over at Fan the Flames Football with the Liberty football coverage. I think out of everyone here talking about the tough start that the Toppers have, you guys kind of have what I would appear to be a kind of a snooze fest. You do have the New Mexico State Week 2 matchup, Conference USA, the first matchup of the season, Conference USA. So that's going to be exciting for you. But tell me a little bit about, again, the Flames' best worst case scenarios this upcoming weekend.
Yeah, man, I'm excited, by the way, about that second week game because it'll be on ESPN2, 10 o'clock kick. Hopefully I can wake up for church the next morning. But anyways, yeah, I'm really excited about this game. This is actually the game that I'm most excited about. I ain't going to lie, because it's the first game of the year. I don't know why people don't get excited about, whoever we're playing. You know what I mean? I know it's going to be kind of a whatever type game for most people, but I tell you what, it's going to be nice to have like kind of a preseason warm up. I'd rather play Campbell than Alabama. There's some people in the fan base that would say otherwise. I don't know why, because we don't have a P4 game. I mean, whatever. But the best case scenario is we have our second stringers and third stringers in by the end of half. That would be amazing. We're up 35-42 to nothing or whatever it may be. Campbell's definitely coming back. They're returning a couple of guys. They're not really that good as what they've had in the past, where Mike Minter was the coach. He's since resigned and moved on, and they also lost their starting quarterback. So they don't really have the players that even the last time we played them, which funny enough, last time we played them, we played a guy named Caleb Sneed, who was one of the top receivers in all of FCS. And then he's a hometown product and actually came and played for us the following year. But I'm still excited about this game. I'm looking forward to seeing what Ryan Berger looks like in the second half. That's what we're hoping. Worst case scenario is somehow we pull another Gardner Webb. People forget about the homecoming of just a couple of years ago where we almost lost to a very, very average Gardner Webb team. I believe it was like 20-14 or something like that. So I don't even know. And yes, Moff, I guess we don't schedule anybody. But that's because unlike other teams in the chat, most teams run away from us that are Power 5 and Power 4, I guess you want to call it now. They buy out their games. At least Virginia Tech, I guess, had the gonads to keep their game on the schedule for 2027, which will happily go to Lane Stadium and beat them again. So I'm excited to see what this season starts. And to be honest, it's nice to have a little bit of preseason game. Everybody has scrimmages in any other level. You even have the UFL. They have their own scrimmages. All we get in college football is inter-squad scrimmages, and it's a fan fest. That doesn't do anything for me. It's good to have this type of thing to warm up, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Well, we can always count on Ben to get his little flair there, the Liberty Flames, about how we know how good they are and how much they carry this conference. But again, we always throw them back on they never schedule anybody, but that's not their fault. I can feel the pain there. We beat Vanderbilt, I believe it's 2 times in a row, and they have bought out every game since. So it happens. But I'll turn it over now to Ben over at March of the Pod. You have a pretty intriguing matchup, an in-state rivalry there with Rice. I don't know how much of a rivalry it is with Sam Houston State and Rice. I'm sure you'll have your input there. But in my opinion, a rather under-the-radar game for G5. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it's really a good test for Sam Houston. I know Casey Keeler has said for a while now that kind of seeing where this program is at, we're going to see how we look in these kind of 50-50 games against a school like Rice. And it kind of truly is a 50-50 game. Rice is a team that went 6-7 last year, lost to Texas State in a bowl game, but did make a bowl game. They're an intriguing opponent. They had JT Daniels last year. His career is finally done after what feels like a decade. So he's gone. And then you've got EJ Warner coming in from Temple, who was decent last year at Temple, son of Kurt Warner. It's going to be his third year as a starter at the FBS level. So They replace him there. They lose Luke McCaffrey, who was probably their best player. He was a 3rd-round draft pick. And so it's a team that's picked kind of middle of the pack in the American. Going to be a good test for Sam Houston. I think best case scenario is probably like a 28-21 kind of win. I think if you do win, it's probably going to be by about 7 to 10 points. I don't really see a scenario where we blow them out. Worst case scenario, I think we look rough. Offense can't get it going. Defense looks a little rough out of the gate under new defensive coordinator Skylar Cassidy, but I don't really envision that scenario happening. I think it's going to be a pretty close game, whether we win or lose. I'm kind of predicting a 24-21, 28-21 kind of game. We'll see which way it goes. Really hoping we can come out on top. And one thing that we have had the last 2 years, so 2 years ago we opened up against A&M. The score was 30-0, but we had a chance to tie it in the red zone towards the end of the first half. And so really pushed them for about a half. And then last year against BYU, it was 13-0 final score on the road. You also had a kick that was blocked and returned for a touchdown in the second half, but that was called back because of a questionable offside. So we've seen in the first game of the year how this team can really come out and compete with some quality opponents, and interested to kind of see what they do against Rice, not a Power 4 team. So going to be a really good game, one of those 50-50 games, but it'll be a good indicator kind of where this program is at in year 2 as an FCS program.
And forgive me there, I might have missed it or missed the announcement this week. Have you guys named a starting quarterback for week 1?
Not officially. You won't see it until game day, game time. I don't know what their plan is there. I know there's been a starter named internally for a little less than a week now, so they know who the guy is internally, but you won't see it publicly until game day or game time, sometime on game day.
I gotcha. Well, I'm sure Las Vegas is waiting to hear that answer for a lot of reasons. But we'll turn it over now to our final guest with us is Jake Gibson over from Pause Up Podcast. You kind of have a mixed bag for your first 2 weeks. I know you go on the road to Indiana, go to Bloomington, play the Hoosiers, and then you come back, first game at Pitbull Stadium. You get to play Central Michigan. A lot of mixed feelings in the Pick'em this upcoming week about where that's going to go this week. But Jake, I'll let you take it away and talk about your Golden Panthers.
So yeah, FIU is in a very weird predicament where they're taking on a Big Ten school that they have taken on, like I believe 3 times in the past decade. Funnily enough, the first ever FIU game I ever attended as a student was in 2018 against Indiana, where FIU was only 10 points away from knocking them off. It would have been amazing, but regardless, we're here now. Now going to be in Bloomington, a place we haven't been in a while, and I actually really like FIU's chances more than, say, Western Kentucky at Alabama or UTEP in Nebraska, because Indiana is not on that tier of talent in the Big Ten. And I had a chance to talk to, funnily enough, another Ben from Hoosier Huddle, and the other night, and talk a bit about what to expect from Indiana. And they're a blank slate. They are a blank slate. They're coming off multiple under 500 seasons. They just fired their previous head coach, and now they're looking to pretty much start off fresh, because they've seen a lot of players leave the team via the transfer portal, and they have received a bundle as well. So you never want to say that you feel confident that FIU is going to get the upset, because I still don't, because Indiana does have Power 4 talent on their team, and obviously you're going to have to be playing in Bloomington as well, which isn't going to help anybody, So, but I do feel confident that FIU has the opportunity to at least put up a respectable performance against Indiana. So one thing I did see about last season for the Hoosiers is that they gave up the second most points per game out of anyone in the Big Ten. Only Purdue gave up more. I feel like that's something that FIU could take advantage of with an explosive run game and some deep shots from Kewan Jenkins to his receivers. If they can do that early on in the game and somehow build a lead that they can take to halftime, then there is a legit chance that FIU can upset the Hoosiers. But again, wishful thinking, but it's tough. It's super tough to be able to do that because you just don't really know what you're getting into against a team like Indiana. Again, brand new coach, brand new system, brand new quarterbacks, brand new running backs, completely different running back room for the Hoosiers, and a very, very different wide receiver core as well. So I'd love to give a straight answer as to how I think we'll do, but it's tough. We're just going to have to wait until we see the first few plays from Indiana on offense and maybe on defense as well to get an idea. But I know Indiana's favored by over 21 points in this game, so maybe Vegas knows a bit more about what could happen than even I do. But I think that FIU can put up a very solid performance. I feel like there's a chance they can catch Indiana off guard here. And if not win, at least keep it really close and bring some momentum into their next game, which will be their home opener at Pitbull Stadium against the Central Michigan Chippewas of the MAC. The last time FIU played Central Michigan was a while ago, back in 2021. It was a very unfortunate game. It was in Mount Pleasant over in Central Michigan. FIU was leading by a score of 27-10 entering the fourth quarter. They gave up 21 unanswered to Central Michigan, who ended up winning the game. Obviously, both teams are very different since then. However, I feel like overall, Central Michigan is kind of in a similar situation to Indiana, where they're projected to be one of the bottom tier teams of their conference. Obviously, the Big Ten is very different from the MAC and vice versa. But I that is a game that I do feel confident FIU will get the win. Will get the win, especially if they're coming off a solid performance against Indiana, which will help push them over the edge. And not to mention, that game against Central Michigan starts off the whole month of September, in which FIU is playing at home. Or not at home, they're playing in South Florida, because after that, they'll head to FAU in Boca Raton. It's a 1-hour drive, and then they'll have their homecoming game against Monmouth FCS, and then they'll take on Louisiana Tech at home as well. So it could start off a really great South Florida homestand, if you will. And again, anything could happen in the Indiana game, but I do feel confident that FIU will get that win against Central Michigan at Pitbull Stadium. Dale.
And tell me a little bit about the whole Pitbull situation. I know the storm kind of blew through, and it took college football by storm everywhere. Now that things have kind of settled down, the dust has settled. What's the excitement level in Miami? Are we seeing more participation throughout? Because I know it's hard to get sports fans anywhere in Miami.
That announcement did exactly what Scott Carr and FIU Athletics wanted it to do. It reached global. Well, I don't know about global. I mean, he is Mr. Worldwide, so maybe. But no, I think in general, and I spoke about this in the last episode of the Pause Up podcast with Kevin, but I just think it's a great move. Obviously, FIU receives money. FIU Athletics receives money out of it, and in return, Pitbull gets a whole host of benefits, such as he himself has access to Pitbull Stadium privately 10 days in the year, in which he can do whatever the heck he wants. He's going to create a new anthem for FIU Athletics, which is exciting. He gets to sell his own tequila at Pitbull Stadium on game days, not to mention a whole bunch of other things that'll be coming up for FIU Athletics with this Pitbull collaboration. So off the field, there's a bunch of amazing activities, concerts, etc., involving Pitbull and some of his friends coming to FIU, which is going to be awesome. And like I said in that episode, we're the first we have the first stadium that's named after a musical artist in the United States. And of all the artists they could have chosen, I think Pitbull is the perfect one for FIU. He is Mr. 305. He embodies Miami. He spoke a lot about that in that press conference that he was a part of right outside Pitbull Stadium. So, no, it did exactly what FIU Athletics wanted it to do in terms of online popularity. And then come week 2, when they finally get to play at Pitbull Stadium, not to mention down the road when Ben and Sam Houston come to town in Vice Night, where it's speculated that Pitbull will be doing something maybe after the game as well. No, a lot of exciting things coming off of that sponsorship alone. Now hopefully FIU can accompany all this excitement about Pitbull Stadium with putting on a spectacular season, hopefully getting into a bowl game.
I'd love to draw the parallel there with Derek Mason and Pitbull. I mean, they both there's not a parallel there. But what I can say from MTSU's perspective to draw off of that, to give us a good segue, is the excitement that's coming around. The Pitbull is in Miami, much like it is worldwide, where Derek Mason is in the Middle Tennessee area. One thing with Derek Mason is the talk about the excitement and the buzz. If you're within a 10-mile radius of campus, you're going to see a picture of Derek Mason somewhere, right, debuting his little point that says "New Era Now." And so that's something that's really exciting that they're doing here at MTSU as we look forward to our first week matchup with Tennessee Tech. As far as our best and worst case scenarios here in Murfreesboro, I think their best case scenario is you you blow Tennessee Tech out of the water. I don't think that you should be anticipating anything less than that. Last time that these two teams played was in 2006, and MTSU won that game 44-0. And our write-ups at gomiddle.com, I actually predicted the exact same score. I think it's going to be 44-0. I think that's 7 touchdowns and a safety in there. The parallels there from an FCS to an FBS school is just, I don't think that they're going to stack up well at all. This is kind of, in a way, recruiting grounds. Cookeville is only 45 minutes away from Murfreesboro, so you're going to have a lot of kids that have played against each other, played with each other in high school. It's going to bring a lot of people within the mid-state together on that Saturday. So it's going to be really, really exciting to see what that stadium will look like with Derek Mason. Evidently, the ticket sales, I'm not sure the exact number. The number that I've had reported to me is we're nearing 1,000 season tickets on top of what we sold last year, and we haven't even kicked off. And as they say, that you'll sell more season tickets after the first game. So that's really good stuff to hear now that we have 6 home games this season as well, something that we haven't had in the past. We normally sell out our non-conference games to go to bigger games, much like we do in week 2, where we go to Oxford and face Ole Miss. We're going to face Heisman candidate, Heisman watch Jackson Dart at quarterback. And the biggest thing for us is to keep it close. I think much like Steven said with Topper Talk and their game with Alabama, is you just want to come out of there respected at least. You don't want to walk out of there with a 49-0 beat down. And secondly, you don't want to walk out of that stadium hurt. The last thing you need to do is have a backup quarterback rolling into week 3 against Western Kentucky. So you want to be as healthy as you possibly can coming out of that matchup, eyes ahead on that first Conference USA matchup, because I would still take a 50-0 blowout at Ole Miss if we came into the Western Kentucky game healthy. I think that's the number one priority there. So worst case scenario, obviously you drop the contest to Tennessee Tech, or even remotely close. I would hope that in no way, form, or fashion that game is anywhere remotely close. And then with Ole Miss, like I said, I'm beating the dead horse with the injury bug, but that's happened to us in the past. We've walked out of games like that, really beat down, and obviously we suffer going into conference play. So you earn your paycheck in Oxford, and you come back and you get ready for conference play. So that'll transition us over now as we'll debut our Pick'em series. We haven't posted anything on social media yet because we like to get this episode out. And as we get closer to kickoff on Thursday, where we start off with Jacksonville State and Coastal Carolina, potentially the closest matchup that we're looking at this upcoming weekend. But I think a lot of us will be surprised to see what the rest of our members picked. And I'll go ahead and show up our week 1 there. The only one picking Coastal Carolina over Jacksonville State on Thursday is Adrian over at Minor Talk Podcast. I believe the Gamecocks are a slight field goal favorite in that contest. And then as we look onto the FIU Indiana, I think we're all surprised to see that Caleb Williams and the 700 Pelham Road were the only ones to pick the Golden Panthers. Not even Jake Gibson of the Pause Up Podcast selected the Panthers to win that matchup. So a lot of exciting things there. A lot of it's straight across the board, except that Sam Houston Rice game. And we'll eventually turn it over to Ben to talk about it. But Jake, I want to turn it right back over to you. Just give me a short bit on that. What do you think Caleb is seeing in that contest with three touchdown underdogs?
First off, Caleb must have said something to Adrian to the point where they chose Coastal Carolina in that matchup. But no, like I said, I think at the end of the day, Indiana does have enough explosive firepower to limit FIU on defensively. There are some parts of FIU's defense that kind of still worry me, even after the spring and fall camps. And as far as offense, I think FIU will do fine, but Indiana will also do fine. So it's the matter of FIU having a good offense but a questionable defense coming into this matchup, versus Indiana having a good offense and a good defense, at least in a Power 4 level, even with all of the new transfers coming in, because they did do solid in the transfer portal despite losing a bunch of players. Not to mention a breath of fresh air at the head coach position. Not to mention they're at home in a what is likely going to be sold out environment over there in Bloomington. So, like I said, anything can happen. Anything can happen if FIU gets a lead at halftime and actually builds upon it in the third quarter. I don't know. It's going to be tough for Indiana to come back into that if that were to happen. But at the same time, if the vice versa thing happens where Indiana builds up an early lead It's going to be tough for FIU to claw their way back into it. That happened a lot at the latter end of last season for the Panthers, where against UTEP and against Jacksonville State, they were down by 21 points early, and they had to spend the rest of the game coming back into it, and they just couldn't. So anything can happen. Shout out Caleb for believing in the Panthers. Listen, I was so close to saying FIU will get the upset. That's what my heart says, right? But my brain is telling me Indiana will do just enough. I don't think they'll cover. I think you need to take FIU plus 21 and a hook in that matchup. But yeah, I think Indiana will do just enough to win this game, just enough.
Well, we're all just playing it safe in that first week. We can't afford to get ourselves too far down in the standings, I think is the move. And as I move along the schedule, UTEP, Nebraska, everyone's pretty much chalk with Nebraska. Same with UTSA as they host Kennesaw State. Liberty and Campbell, no surprise there. MTSU, Tennessee Tech, same there. Unfortunately, our friend over at Topper Talk, I'm afraid you're going to start the season 0-1. I hate to see that. And then lastly, we will turn it to Ben. As we talked about at the very top there, when you were previewing your first weekend, it seems pretty split. Looks like Adrian and Steven, as well as Evan over at Go Tech Please Don't Die, they're taking the Owls in that one. Plead your case for us, Ben.
Yeah, it's good. I think it's truly a 50-50 game. This is a Sam Houston team that's much improved, especially on the depth aspect of it. I feel like my heart is telling me Sam Houston, my head's telling me Rice. I think it's going to be really close either way. One thing to look at in this game is Sam Houston was a team that practiced exclusively at 4 or 6 p.m. all throughout camp, partly because we had to go off-site with turf renovations. And then when they moved it back to campus, they continued to go in the evening. And Rice practiced every day, 7 a.m. They had the freezer trucks there. They were in those before and after every practice. And so this is a game at 6 p.m. It'll be interesting to kind of see. I mean, it's probably going to be 100 degrees, heat index over 100 on the field. So I wonder if that maybe takes a toll on Rice maybe a little later in the game, just because the heat and humidity is going to be really tough. So I think if it's close late in the game, Sam Houston's really got a shot. But I really think it is truly 50-50, and we'll see what it looks like.
Well, the lone representative that's present here that did select Rice was Steven, and I don't know, I want to hear your take on it because I'm with Ben there that it is a pretty much 50-50 toss-up, but Rice is obviously in the minority of the group. Steven, what led you to take the Owls over the Bearcats?
It was really just one of those coin flip games. I mean, there was nothing in particular. I think Rice has shown steady improvement over the last couple years. It probably was more of a familiarity pick and I think both teams and schools are on an upward trajectory of where they were just a few years ago and where they're going. But probably just a little bit more familiarity with Rice, and just I picked them to win. Nothing personal. It literally was a coin flip. And I think the results of the whole roundtable kind of show that anybody can win that game. I expect that to come down to the last possession. Maybe whoever has ball last is going to win that game. So it should be a fun one to watch for sure.
Yep, it's going to be close.
Yeah, I think Steven's too nice with it. I think the reality is Sam Houston, we haven't seen it yet, and I'll be the guy. I've been sipping on the orange Kool-Aid all summer long with these podcast episodes. I think the hype around Sam Houston State is real this year. I took the Bearcats in that game as well. So I think it's going to be interesting to see that matchup just for the sake of the in-state rivalry of it all, as well as the G5 level of excitement with a game like that. And we'll keep rolling here. We got Louisiana Tech. They host Nicholls State. I know that's one that Evan at Go Tech Please Don't Die would love for La Tech to get under their belt, because he doesn't seem very optimistic about their season, but that's an in-state opponent that you would love to get one over on. And then Caleb Williams keeping it rolling with the SEMO pick over New Mexico State. And there's no one from New Mexico State to speak otherwise, other than I guess Caleb thinks that the Aggies don't have it this year. I'm not sure where he is getting those two picks from, but he may get a big leap on all of us if those two picks come out with FIU and SEMO wins. We'll have a lot of ground to be making up there with those picks.
SEMO did look pretty good the other day.
Maybe he got inspired from Montana State beating Nevada and thinks, maybe the FCS can take down the FBS in this matchup.
I mean, of all of our contests here that have FCS opponents, I would say that that potentially is the best opportunity to happen. I mean, with New Mexico State having as many question marks as they do, like I said, I don't know much about SEMO. I only research FCS schools locally within my little vicinity here, but that would be something. I mean, the little man has gotten over on FBS more times than they haven't in the past. So
yeah, well, I was going to say SEMO, they actually played last week, and so they've got a game under their belt. They beat North Alabama by 22 and looked pretty good. So I'm not going to say they're going to beat them, but I mean, maybe that's where some of the confidence is coming from.
Well, Cumbie may not make it to week 2. The new coach out there in New Mexico may not make it to week 2. But talk about another FCS, the Nicholls State was another one that I think it could potentially happen, even though we all picked unanimously for the Bulldogs to win that matchup. But let's move on to week 2 now. We got the Jacksonville State-Louisville game. I was surprised to see a pair of picks there for Jacksonville State. That's another P4 game for Conference USA that I think some people could see swinging in the way of Jacksonville State. But we got you here, Jake. I want to hear, what's up with the Gamecocks over the Cardinals on the road.
I'm not going to lie. That was kind of a what the hell kind of pick going with Jacksonville State. I understand Louisville is going to have a fantastic season, but I feel like this is going to be a trap game for them, for the Cardinals. An early trap game in the season against a very high quality team in Jacksonville State, expected to be one of the top tiers of Conference USA. They want to make a name for themselves in the P4 level. And Jacksonville State has done such a good job in their past of defeating Power 4 and FBS opponents. I'll never forget when they took down Florida State in the COVID season, that I felt like, you know what? I feel like if things worked out 100% well for Jacksonville State, they can go into Louisville and beat them, as crazy as it sounds. Maybe it's a pick that I'm going to regret, but I actually agree with Caleb of the 700 Pelham Road podcast and thinking that the Gamecocks could do just enough to win. They're obviously not going to blow out Louisville, but it'll be a close contest that might come down to the wire. We all just saw how this season began with an upset, with Georgia Tech knocking off Florida State. So anything can happen, and I actually have some confidence in them.
All right. Well, moving on to the next one, Central Michigan at FIU, first game in Pitbull Stadium. Again, kind of a split crowd there. Ben and Caleb, 700 Pelham Road, going with Central Michigan, as well as Adrian. I guess Adrian sees the road upset. Jake's kind of already pleaded the case there, but I think the fact that we're kind of a split crowd once again attests to the fact that that's a good G5 matchup. Two teams. FIU seems to be, as the word that's been going, upwards trajectory with those guys. You got Keon Jenkins at quarterback. Central Michigan. I'm not a big MAC guy, but they've always kind of been a middle of the pack group. So again, Jake, maybe just 2 cents. Where that matchup could be intriguing for a lot of G5 watchers.
I don't think Central Michigan has done enough in the transfer portal to improve the positions that they struggled with last season, which made them one of the more bottom-tier teams in the MAC. And I don't know. I just feel confident that FIU will go out into that game and put on a solid performance, because I actually do have confidence in FIU's both passing and running game, which can take down a very questionable Central Michigan defense. Regardless of if Kewan's throwing the ball down the field to Desna Washington or Dean Patterson, or they give the ball to one of their three-headed monsters and Shamari Lawrence, Keyshawn Owens, or Lexington Joseph. I think the offense alone for FIU will do enough to keep Central Michigan at bay. And I think FIU's defense will obviously be battle tested after that Indiana game in week 1. They should perform well against, again, one of the lower offenses we saw in the MAC last season in Central Michigan. I feel relatively confident in them.
All right. Well, speaking of sipping the orange Kool-Aid there, the Sam Houston goes on the road to Orlando to face Central Florida. The only pick for the Bearcats is Fan the Flames only. Ben Reynolds. Ben, tell us a little bit about that.
Man, I just believe, you know what I mean? No. I do think if there's an upset in non-con that's going to be like some type of impact, I think this is the game. Like a true upset, I guess you could say. I really don't have a lot of faith in UCF. I know that maybe it's also me trying to prove a point to all these people that are my friends at over here at Flames Nation who think I just think of KJ as one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever walk the face of the earth, who transferred from Arkansas, and now is a starting quarterback at UCF, KJ Jefferson. I just think I know that old ball coach over there. I don't know why I'm slipping. The old Auburn coach. Melzon. I don't know why I was slipping my brain. I just know he's got a way to lose games. He may have had some great moments, but I think this is going to be a nice little slip up, and Sam Houston's going to surprise some people. This is going to be hopefully we have our own little Sunbelt moment of like a upset like that where everybody flipped out over like some really dumb wins that ended up being like 5-7, 6-6 teams like Texas A&M and App State. Yeah. We'll come down to Boone. We'll get that later. Anyways, I'm getting too far ahead of myself. I'm getting excited.
I didn't mean to get you on your soapbox and get you going on that game. I know there's a lot of excitement building around that one. Ben, I'll turn it back over to you there. Sam Houston, I was surprised to see that we only had one selection for the Bearcats in that road game. But tell me, UCF, that's a tough contest. They're Big 12 now, I believe, so that would be a big win for the program, especially as you're trying to turn around from last season.
Yeah, it would be huge. It would be our first Power 4 win in program history, I believe. We've had some FBS wins, obviously, but not at the Power 4 rank, so it'd be big. But it's going to be tough. It's a night game in the bounce house. I think they also have it's like the cosmonaut theme night or something where they've got all the crazy helmets going on. So it's going to be an electric atmosphere there. But like I said a couple minutes ago, it's a team, or Sam Houston's a team, when we've gone into Power 4 opponents' places, we've been able to compete, maybe not for all 60 minutes, but I mean, maybe for a half or 3/4 or whatever that looks like. And it's a team that's used to playing in hostile environments. Last year, you were the opening night against BYU, was electric. Opening day against A&M 2 years ago. You were in the FCS National Championship game 3 years ago, and there's still about a dozen guys left from that roster that played in some capacity. So we've got guys that are used to playing in big environments. I'm not going to pick us. I don't think we're going to win, but I also don't think we're going to lose 49-7 or 49-0. I think it's maybe a 35-20, 35-21 kind of game. So definitely think we can keep it close. Not going to pick us, but I'm excited about it. It's going to be an interesting environment. It will be fun to watch.
Absolutely good stuff there. Well, let's move on to a battle in Kentucky. We got Western Kentucky hosting Eastern Kentucky. Stephen, I'll turn this back over to you. I'm interested about that dynamic there with Eastern Kentucky, Western Kentucky. Is it as much of a rivalry as it would geographically seem to be?
It is a historic rivalry that, a lot of our older fan base, going back to the Ohio Valley Conference of the 90s and early 2000s will appreciate. But since we've transitioned to FBS, I don't like to look at any school as little brother, because I don't want to call someone in state and look at them that way, because I don't want Louisville and UK to look at us that way. I would like to have an seat at the table. I would like to have regularly scheduled games. I would like to be able to prove our point on the field that we can compete at any level. So I don't want to look at them in a disrespectful way, but it is a game that we should come in and win. We do lead the all-time series by, a considerable margin in 85 all-time meetings. So it should be a good game. There's the head coach is a former WKU position coach. There's ties there. But it is a game that I expect that we'll come in, should have control of from start to finish, should really get to have a lot of our depth chart players get to come in and have some game time experience under the lights. So I'm looking forward to that game. I think it's a great game to have on the schedule across all sports. We've played them recently in basketball as well, and I think we have future games with them in basketball. So I love that we're playing the game. I don't want to have any disrespect towards them, but I think it is a game that we should win decisively.
Absolutely. Well, and we'll finish it off with Louisiana as they travel into Atlanta and face off against Kennesaw State. Another pick there for Ben over at Fan the Flames. That's an interesting one. I know he stepped away for a second. We'll give him an opportunity to talk about it in just a bit. And then we got Southern Utah traveling to UTEP, potentially going to be Scotty Walden's first win there at the helm of El Paso. And then Liberty, they should undoubtedly go 2-0 after their matchup there with New Mexico State. I think we all are in consensus there. New Mexico State, a lot of question marks. Liberty, just too good, even if it is on the road there in Las Cruces. So that moves our conversation on to our last topic, G5 Fantasy. If you missed out on the opportunity to talk or to see or sign up for it, I should say, with us over there, we had it posted on Twitter for a few seconds. We had enough people jump in there and grab those last few spots. I know Steven is going to go to sleep here. He hates fantasy football. He's not a fan of it. And I don't know if that's more of a lack of Hilltopper guys. Is it what is it? Is it because you can't do an all WKU roster? What's the deal with anti-fantasy football?
I'm not anti-fantasy football. I played. I'm probably the elder statesman in this room. I would reckon to say I played fantasy football for a long time with the same group of college guys for nearly 20 years. I got out of it a couple years ago. I started caring too much about these irrelevant games and teams and players that I had no affiliation with. I stepped away and just started to enjoy sports, college and pro, just from a different level, just watching and not having any skin in the game, so to speak. So nothing personal. I had to take a step back from fantasy. I still play in one league. I got suckered into it at work. The last 2 years, they said, hey, let's do this. It's just for fun. There's no money involved. It's an NFL league. But man, college is it's a different animal as far as fantasy goes. There's so many teams, players. Yeah, I couldn't do it. It's too immersive for me to dive all the way into that because I can't do it, halfway. I would have to be all or none. So for that reason, I'm out.
Understandable. I know that a lot of us, it takes a lot of time commitment, and I do appreciate, I believe it was Ben Sorrells at March of the Pod that set all that up for us. So he's going to be the commissioner, and I'll put the talk over to him about his squad. How do you feel about it? And before I do, I just want to say, kind of bounce off of what Steven said. One thing about G5 Fantasy that I didn't realize until we threw all this together was, the matchups at the FCS games, these bye games, like there's so many variables that play into a week-to-week basis. So, Ben, sorry to take it away and give it to you, take it away, and now I'm going to give it back to you. Tell me a little bit about your team and what you anticipate with this upcoming season.
Yeah, I got Royals, the wide receiver from Utah State, with my first pick. So I was the commissioner, and I got the last pick in the draft. Of course, it's just the way it's set up. Got the turn pick, got the Royals, the wide receiver from Utah State, with my first pick. I did get TJ Finley. I think it was the 13th round. I really waited out getting a quarterback because I like Finley. I saw what he did last year. I think he's going to do well in the WKU offense this year. And then my final two picks were two Sam Houston wide receivers that I think are very overlooked. Ife Adeyi, who has a couple thousand career receiving yards, but was hurt most of last year and only played 2 games. Caught the national championship game-winning touchdown. And then the year after had 800 yards receiving and I think 10 touchdowns. So he's back and fully healthy. Actually got 3rd or 4th in Texas in the 100-meter dash. I think he ran like a 10-1 in high school. So really fast guy. And then I also got Quavez Humphreys with my last pick, another receiver for us. He's 6'3", 220. Staff thinks he could be our best receiver this year. So got a couple Sam Houston guys there to round it out. TJ Finley there at quarterback. And then, I had the last pick. Commissioner gets the last pick. So excited about this year. It's definitely going to be interesting. First time playing G5 fantasy football, but definitely excited about it.
And we'll turn it over to the other Ben Reynolds. I know you drafted your team. You got to maybe cut out on us a little bit early here, but tell us a little bit about your roster.
Yeah, I'm excited. To be honest, I think I got to steal the draft. I don't know what was going on. I don't know if you guys saw that. I was still sleeping when I woke up, and I was like, "Oh shoot, I forgot to set an alarm." But woke up, and then I saw that I had drafted. And Ashton Jeanty. And I was like, how in the world did I get him with the third pick? And it turns
Because
out
Marquise Crosby went second.
yes, for her sidelines, Louisiana Tech, which was insane. And then I proceeded to get what is his name? Seth, the quarterback there for
Hannigan.
Memphis. Yeah, Hennigan. Yep. So yeah, it was a good time. So
yeah, SSN Louisiana Tech getting that second pick kind of like threw like everything through a loop. At least my game plan going into it, everything changed. But Jake Gibson, tell us a little bit about the Pause Up podcast, their G5 roster.
Ooh, I like my roster. I like it a lot. The quarterback I wanted out the rip, Joey Aguilar from App State. I got him. I think he and that App State offense are going to have a monster season over there in the Sun Belt. And it's funny. It's funny that Kevin messaged me before the draft. He'd be like, "Oh my God, all these Conference USA guys, they're not going to take Sun Belt people. Just go ham on the Sun Belt because they're not going to want them because they're Sun Belt." And I that kind of worked out in my favor because I wanted the quarterback that I wanted badly, which was Aguilar. I then got Maki Hughes from Tulane as one of my two running backs. I think that Tulane offense and Tulane defense, for that matter, is going to be stellar over there in the AEC. So I'm very happy about that. My wide receiver trio of Rock Taylor from Memphis, Jalen Moss, I think is going to be an underrated player for Fresno State, and of course Tajee Hudson from James Madison, another very solid team over there in the Sun Belt. That's a good looking wide receiver room. I'm not too sure about Oscar Cardenas, my tight end for UTSA. I wanted another tight end earlier in the draft that I was going to save until the late round because I thought no one else would get him, and it turns out someone did, so I just settled for Oscar. Hopefully he'll be good. I'm not too sure about him. I got Trayon Sibley as my flex player from Liberty. I'm happy about that. He's a stud, and hopefully he'll get a lot of playing time. Steven, I think I might have messed up. I took Caden Veltkamp as my backup quarterback. However, I don't know. I just don't know how much playing time he's going to get for Western Kentucky. So I might be looking for a backup quarterback soon in the as far as waiver wires and whatnot. I even love my kicker, Nick Brown for Liberty, because if Liberty's offense is scoring a lot of points, then Nick Brown's going to be busy kicking the ball. So I like that too. So and aside from that, I got maybe one of the best G5 defenses there is, and of course Jacksonville State's defense and a late pick, Tulane's defense as a backup. Again, I think Tulane is going to be an amazing squad, offense and defense wise. So I'm very happy with both of those defenses that I can mix and match based on who they're taking on. So no, I think I got a great team. Y'all are in trouble. Y'all are in trouble, man. It might get ugly for y'all.
I forgot to add that I got Sean Brown from Jack State at tight end. I'm excited about that one. I know he was on our roundtable all-conference team.
Yeah, my team hinges a lot on MTSU being moderately good. One thing I know about MTSU, at least in years past, I know we have a new offensive coordinator, is going to be the ability to score and obviously throw the ball a lot, which is why I was able to get MTSU's quarterback, Nick Vadiato, late in the draft. So I'm pretty excited about that. I think from a fantasy perspective, he's going to be an excellent pickup. I even think in our games that are going to be rough for us, like the Memphis game and the Ole Miss game, I still think he's going to put up solid numbers, that he's going to have competitive weeks there. And then I always put my money where my mouth is, even though we're playing for free. I did take Omari Kelly, the new wideout, Auburn transferred to MTSU. So we'll see what he's able to do. I think he'll put up, again, fantasy numbers. He's going to be a big guy on third down. Holden Willis, leading receiver, returning in Conference USA. So that's why I say a lot's going to hinge on the success of the Blue Raiders in regards to me. Past that, though, I did take my first pick was Ismail Mahdi, the running back there at Texas State. Pretty excited about him and the group that I have there. Other running back, Marion Lukes at Central Michigan, as well as Rasul Faison at Utah State. And then Memphis, Blankumsey, Demir, I think is his first name, wide receiver for the Tigers. And then, Steven, you'll love to hear this. I got Lucas Canero as my place kicker. So I couldn't take Zeke Rankin, not necessarily known for his distance kicking, but Canero, excellent from distance. I'm pretty sure he was perfect from the PATs, so I know that was a pick that I almost couldn't turn down at that rate. I think it was the next to last round. And then I took Appalachian State's defense. I didn't really know, as far as defense goes, I was kind of the best available at that times. But that I do think, in hindsight, I think that's going to be a pick that's is going to at least help me out a little bit there, because we're talking about playing FC, or we're talking about G5s playing against P4s. I think that's a team that's going to stack up well, regardless of who's on their schedule. So that's my lineup. I feel good about it. I'm definitely not nearly as confident as Jake Gibson is on his lineup, but it's all about matchups and seeing where things stack up. But that'll do it for our episode today, guys. Before we sign off here, I just want to say, if you're new to the CUSA Roundtable, please don't forget to follow us on Twitter so you don't miss everything that we cover. All of us here, plenty of in-depth coverage on a weekly basis. We got episodes for you, especially now that the season's rolling around. You can keep your eyes out for collaborations amongst each other, as well as some of us are members of the College Huddle, where we will be interviewing collaborations with other schools that we're playing against. So a lot of great content is going to be coming out of the CUSA Roundtable. And we're not that far away from basketball season. We'll be rolling out our bi-weekly episodes for basketball preview and all that stuff. So I appreciate everyone tuning in this week. And just to preview next week, we'll go over the results of the first 2 weeks, as well as our pick 'em for the weeks 3 and 4. Take a look at our standings, check in with our fantasy teams, all that good stuff. And I will say that Jake over at Pause Up Podcast will be hosting it next week. So good stuff as always from him, and look forward to it. So keep eyes peeled for the Pause Up Podcast so you don't miss that stream. You have to follow them. Don't miss it. Follow Pause Up Podcast so you don't miss that stream in 2 weeks. And until next time, we will see you all then.
Awesome.